Hello everyone. Today's our topic is types of locking. So here in these types of locking, here we are going to discuss what is the usage of two-phase locking. The two-phase locking which is are also going to be calling it as here 2PL means two-phase locking. So here in this two-phase locking, so this locking technique can be applied to the concurrent execution of transactions, nothing but in order to provide control among the multiple number of transactions, you are going to use the locking technique. So here in this locking techniques, we are going to use two-phase locking technique. So what are the two phases? The first phase is going to be calling it as here growing phase, and the second phase we are going to be calling it as here shrinking phase. The first phase is going to be calling it as growing phase, and second type is the shrinking phase. In this growing phase, you can continuously place the locks. You can continuously place the lock and you cannot release the locks. You cannot unlock. So that what we calling it as here the growing phase means, for example, if X is a data item, you are going to execute the read operation. So in order to execute the read operation, simply you are going to be calling it as here read of X. So in order to execute the read operation, which lock we are going to be placed? The type of the lock is going to be calling it as here shared lock, and which data item you are going to be placed here? So this is going to be calling it as X. So likewise we are going to be calling it as S of X. So you can place the lock, the type of the lock is shared lock, on which data item? X. So likewise you are going to place the locks. For example, if Y is one more data item, you are going to place write lock on that. So write lock means you are going to place lock X. The type of lock is here exclusive lock. So here exclusive lock, on which data item you are going to be placed? On Y data item. So for this purpose you can execute both read operation of Y and as well as the write operation of Y. So in order to place the exclusive lock, you can place the type of lock is X, and in order to read lock, the type of lock is going to be calling it as here shared lock S. So continuously you can place the locks and you can execute both read and write operations. After completion of both read and write operations, and finally the last task, the last operation will be unlock. So unlock S of X, and similarly unlock X of, so here you can take one more transaction called data item called Y. So likewise you may continuously obtain the locks and finally you may release the locks. So in growing phase, the transactions continuously you can obtain the locks, you can place the locks on different data items. So for this purpose, on different transaction, different data items are there, you can execute read and write operations. So you can continuously place the locks. And finally, after completion of all read and write operations, and the final operation is going to be called it as here unlock. So here in this case, the continuously placing of the locks is going to be calling it as here the growing phase, and the finally you can release the locks, that what we going to be calling it as here shrinking phase. Growing phase is nothing but you can place the locks can be held until all the operations are going to be completed. So for this purpose you are continuously place the locks on particular data items. So that what we calling it as here the growing phase. And after completion of the read and write operations, finally the last operation is going to be calling it as here unlock. So likewise you are continuously here, you can continuously place the locks, and the last phase you are going to continuously release the locks. So you are releasing the locks means you are unlocking. So that phase is going to be calling it as here shrinking phase. So here in this two phase locking, we should see what are the different types of two phase locking. What are the different types of two phase locking? So here in this two phase locking, you are going to use the two mechanism. The first one which we are going to be calling it as here strict two phase locking, and the second type which we are going to be calling it as here rigorous two phase locking. So what is the first type here? Strict two phase locking, and the second type which we are going to be calling it as here rigorous two phase locking. So strict two phase locking, what is here strict two phase locking? So, in this strict two-page locking is nothing but you can strictly impose a rule that you can place the locks continuously to all the transactions on different type of data items, and you cannot release the locks until the transaction is going to be perfectly commits. So, and this procedure can be completed until the transaction is going to be committed. So, the final last implementation, the last call will be the commit. Finally the transaction must be commit. What is the commit? The successful completion or the successful execution of a particular transaction is going to be calling it as here commit. So, for this purpose the strict two-page locking is nothing but you can place all the locks on different types of data items until the particular transaction is going to be committed. So, if the transaction is perfectly committed, nothing but all the changes or all the updation operations will be going to be properly updated onto the database, and finally the changes are going to be modified. In this case you are going to save the particular transaction or save the particular data items related to that particular transactions, and finally the transaction is going to be committed, and then only after committing of the transaction you are going to be unlock. So, already we should see in the last video the example of concurrency control mechanism, what we are going to be taken here. So, from account B to account A the funds are going to be transferred. So, funds are going to be transferred, here. So, you should see how you can place the different types of locks. So, account B to account A the funds are going to be transferred. So, for like this you are going to read B and the funds are going to be transferred. Already we should see the amount to 50 rupees is going to be transferred from account B to account A, and finally you are going to place the write B. So, you are performing read and write operations. So, which lock you are going to place? Lock, exclusive lock on the particular data item called B, and next one. So, again you are going to read A. So, A colon equal to A plus 50, and you are going to perform write operation of A. So, similarly you are going to place which lock? Exclusive lock on particular data item called X. So, you are performing exclusive lock on B and both read and write operations are executed. You are performing exclusive lock on A, both read and write operations are executed, and finally the transaction is going to be commit. First one is B and next one is commit, the second data item is A, and finally after completion of all this, and finally you can release. So, unlock the lock, exclusive lock on data item B and unlock exclusive lock on data item A. So, this phase which we are going to be calling it as here growing phase, and this phase which we are going to be calling it as here shrinking phase. So, likewise in the strict two-page locking means, so you are continuously place the locks on particular different types of transactions, and you can't release, you can't unlock after the completion of B, or you can't unlock after completion of A. So, after completion of both the transactions, if it is going to be committed, the final last statement is going to be committed, and after that the transaction will be here unlocked. So, here the transaction will be unlocked. So, this what we going to be calling it as strict two-page locking. It means it executes both in growing phase and shrinking phase in two phases. One should be continuously you are going to place the locks on all the data item and different transactions, and finally the last statement will be, so here unlock, you are going to execute the unlock. So, before that you are going to execute the transaction of commit B and similarly commit A. You are going to execute both commit B and commit A after completion of all these only. So, after completion of all this only you are going to unlock. So, next the second type of locking which we are going to be calling it as here rigorous two-page locking. So, here what is a rigorous two-page locking means, you should place all the locks until the transaction commits, and finally the transaction should be terminated. So, you can continuously place all the locks and the transaction is going to be committed and it should be terminated. And here one more thing, the strict two-page locking here, this is going to be calling it as here deadlock free protocol. It is going to be calling it as deadlock free protocol. Why we are going to be calling it as a deadlock free protocol means, you already very well know what is a deadlock. So deadlock means in operating system concept, whenever a process holds a resource, if the same resource is going to be if the same resource is going to be accessed by remaining other processes, then automatically one process is waiting for the other process in order to release that particular resource. So one process is waiting for another process, likewise all the different processes are waiting for the different set of processes. In there, no other process can release the lock, and finally all are going to be entered into the deadlock state. The same concept is going to be applied in the database system also. If different transactions are executing here, if a transaction holds a particular lock on a particular data item, automatically when other transaction comes, T1 holds a lock on B. If a T2 transaction is going to be want to place a lock on the particular data item B, but the lock is going to be already placed by T1 transaction. If the T1 transaction releases the lock, then T2 transaction may hold that particular lock. So the T2 transaction is waiting for T1. So here in this T1, T2, so T1 is waiting for T2 and T2 is waiting for T1. So nothing but here likewise it may enter into a cycle, and the problem is going to be calling it as here deadlock. So likewise in this case, whenever if we are implementing the strict two-phase locking, strictly we can say that this is a completely deadlock free protocol. There is no possibility the system can be in a safe state, and it will be going to be calling it as a deadlock free protocol. So coming to the next one, rigorous two-phase locking. In this type of locking, you can place all the locks until the transaction is going to be completed, and finally the transaction get terminated. Strict two-phase locking, you can implement the transaction is going to be committed, and it will be going to be calling it as deadlock free protocol. In the similar case, rigorous two-phase locking is also going to be you can place the locks and finally the transaction get terminated here. So and one more concept here we are going to be taken is how can you make the conversion of lock from one type of lock to another lock. So here we are also defined there are two types, one for read lock, that what we are going to be calling it as a shared lock, and another one is going to be calling it as write lock, that what we are going to be calling it as here exclusive lock. So you can make the conversion, you can convert one lock to another, read lock to write lock and write lock to read lock. So here the first type of conversion is going to be calling it as here upgrade lock conversion. Upgrading is nothing but whenever you are executing the read operation, you can convert the read lock to a write lock. For example, if you are going to place a read lock on a particular data item Q, then if you are going to execute the write operation, automatically you can convert it into write Q. So likewise the conversion, so if it is executing read, you can place a shared lock. If it is a write operation, you can convert it into exclusive lock. So you can upgrade the shared lock to exclusive lock, convert the shared lock to exclusive lock. So this is what we are going to be calling it as here upgrading lock conversion. So if you are executing the write lock, write data item and Q, so if we are going to be converted it into read operation, so you can execute a read of Q. So nothing but a downgrade, that what we call if you are executing the write operation, simply if you are going to be converted only the read operation, So for this purpose you are going to downgrade the write operation to read operation. So that what we call it as converting the exclusive lock to shared lock. So here the lock conversions are two types. First one is upgrade and second one is downgrade. Upgrade is nothing but converting shared lock to exclusive lock. Downgrade is nothing but converting the exclusive lock to shared lock. So these are the different types of lockings which you are going to be implemented in concurrency control mechanism to execute all the transaction properly without any errors. So likewise you are going to place locking system. Just like in operating system, for executing of a process you are going to place into a critical section. In the similar case you are going to use the locks. So you can continuously place the lock and you can continuously release the lock. So in the form of growing pace and shrinking pace. So in the next concept you can see what are the different types of multiple types of granularities in the locking system. So hope you understood. Thank you. Thanks for watching. Thank you.